Watching the real-time devastation of San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle. But those are the biggest cities. The cost is far worse in many cities that fly just under the radar. Cities too small to make the nightly news. Cities filled with poverty and drug use. Cities that have been left to rot. Today, we've come to one such city. A city that, for those who know, has become a byword for urban despair. Camden, New Jersey. Fentanyl is a huge problem for the city. According to the New Jersey Attorney General Office, there were 326 suspected overdose deaths in Camden County alone. Fentanyl has even been making its way into schools, with several incidents of students ODing in school settings and on school buses, prompting a Camden County program providing Narcan and overdose training to school bus drivers. Narcan, scientifically known as naloxone, is a life-saving medication that can rapidly reverse the effects of a fentanyl or opioid overdose. It works by binding to the same receptors in the brain that opioids use, effectively displacing the opioids and reversing their effects. Narcan has become a crucial tool in the fight against the fentanyl epidemic, saving thousands of lives across the United States and globally. It is available in several forms, including a nasal, spray, and injectable, and has been advocated for use by first responders, healthcare professionals, and even bystanders in emergency situations.
So basically, this is ground zero for Camden City, for the heroin epidemic, the fentanyl epidemic, the homeless epidemic, the mental health epidemic. Not only do we have multiple open-air drug markets here, we have multiple rehabs that also border the area, which is interesting. And unfortunately, the system's not set up well that they leave the drug rehabs with certain things like methadone and then come out and sell it to other users. And it's just like this revolving door that goes around. And it's a city that's been neglected for so long. It's been a problem that's been neglected for so long. It's been a not my problem kind of attitude. And, you know, we're just a group of volunteers, and we've all just kind of come together to raise awareness that, you know, whether you have an opinion or not about this lifestyle, this is somebody's child out here suffering. Some people say, oh, they made a choice. They did. But nobody woke up one morning and said, I want to be an addict, or I want to have to, you know, sell my body to support my lifestyle. Nobody made that decision in life. There's always a set of circumstances.
여러분, 펜타닐이라는 마약을 들어보셨나요? 펜타닐은 현재 미국 전역에서 급증하고 있는 아주 심각한 마약입니다. 미국뿐만 아니라 이제는 한국에서도 종종 나타나고 있죠. 펜타닐이 심각하다고는 하지만 어느 정도인지는 잘 모르실 겁니다. 펜타닐은 아주 무서운 마약입니다.
Some drug dealers and addicts have taken to cutting xylazine into fentanyl. Xylazine is known on the street as Tranq. Tranq is a tranquilizer for horses said to extend the effects of fentanyl. But the major problem surrounding Tranq is that it is known to leave massive open wounds on a user's arms and legs, causing massive infection and sometimes amputation. We went to Kensington, a neighborhood of Philadelphia, to check out the fentanyl epidemic.
Right there, he's shooting her. Look, he's shooting her up right now.
Oh my gosh. Holy crap. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
This whole block. These blocks of people.
Shooting her in the knee.
Holy crap. Jesus, help him.
Camden is a hellscape. And then you get to Kensington, and it's a completely different level. I've never seen anything remotely like it. It's the scariest thing I've ever seen in the United States, bar none, without a doubt. When you get off the freeway in Kensington, you're in kind of a nice part of town. You're seeing these fairly nice middle-class buildings and a nice public school, charter school on the side with kids coming out of it. It's all pretty clean. It seems like it's pretty well run. And then you make a right onto Kensington Avenue, and suddenly all hell breaks loose. It's just miles of drug addicts. People who are missing limbs and toes and fingers. You're seeing people who are bent over at the waist because the drugs have done such horrific things to their body, they're not capable of standing up straight. It looks like something out of The Walking Dead.
They're shooting up right now. She's shooting right into her foot. And this guy's scratching it. Where undoubtedly massive flesh wounds from Tranq.
You continue driving for maybe a block, and suddenly you see a bunch of cop cars with the lights flashing. They've blocked off the entire street. They've got the yellow tape out. That means that somebody has either been murdered or there's been an OD. It's just the epicenter of chaos. This place it's Mad Max. I mean, it's no man's land.
보시다시피 펜타닐은 정말 무서운 마약입니다. 하지만 펜타닐이 정말 무서운 점은 바로 확산이 용이하다는 것입니다. 정말로 빠르게 퍼져나가고 있는 것이죠.
So why did fentanyl become the top killer of young Americans? Fentanyl is a potent synthetic opioid drug approved by the FDA for use as an analgesic, pain relief. It is 100 times more potent than morphine. It is 50 times more potent than heroin. It is consumed a myriad of ways, and a lethal dose of fentanyl for most people is only 2 milligrams, which, if you've seen the famous graphic, looks like a bit of dust next to a penny. Fentanyl is easy to traffic because of its size, and on the street, it's gone from $5 per pill to $3 per pill to as low as 40 cents per pill. According to Sergeant Al Schultz, a Tacoma Police Department Special Investigations Unit officer working undercover, while attempting to purchase 1,000 pills, dealers were giving him 20,000 pills for the same price. All of this adds up to a drug that is easy to move, easy and cheap to buy, easy to ingest, and is extraordinarily deadly.
이렇게 말도 안 되는 펜타닐이 어떻게 만들어질까요? 펜타닐은 기본적으로 진통제로서 의료계에서 사용하는 약품입니다. 1960년 폴 얀셴 박사에 의해 만들어졌는데요. 이후 여러 제약회사에서 몸에 부착할 수 있는 펜타닐 패치를 출시했습니다. 또한 펜타닐 사탕도 출시했죠.
One of the major reasons the fentanyl crisis is unprecedented has to do with the ease of its spread, its potency, its form. In 1960, Dr. Paul Janssen, a Belgian chemist and founder of Janssen Pharmaceutica, synthesized fentanyl. It wasn't until 1968 that fentanyl was granted FDA approval, but only in combination with a drug named droperidol in order to minimize abuse potential, meaning the FDA very early on saw the possible detrimental effects fentanyl could have on society. In the late 1980s, the California Alza Corporation developed Duragesic, essentially fentanyl in patch form, which later became the most successful fentanyl product, earning a place on the WHO's list of essential medicines. In 1998, a fentanyl lollipop was created by a company called Actic, created for use by cancer patients. It wasn't until 2005 that the FDA started an investigation into Duragesic based on rising deaths and overdoses. In that same year, according to research conducted by ImpactRx, the Actic lollipop was widely prescribed off-label, with more than 80% of patients using the drug without having cancer. In 2007, following its investigation, the FDA released a follow-up to its initial public health advisory, stating that doctors were inappropriately prescribing the fentanyl patch and patients were using it incorrectly. In 2013, street use began to climb in hotspots across the United States. As production and capability in Mexico increased and China began to get involved, fentanyl began to be sold as heroin. And as the potency of the two drugs varied drastically, accidental overdoses increased year on year. In 2022, the number of people who died from a fentanyl overdose more than doubled from 2019, with the drug responsible for nearly 70% of all drug overdose deaths. In the following year, 2023, the DEA seized more than 78.4 million fentanyl-laced fake pills and nearly 12,000 pounds of fentanyl powder, equivalent to more than 388.8 million lethal doses of fentanyl. Fentanyl is currently the most effective killer of all adults aged 18 to 49 years old in the United States. Its death toll is higher than traffic accidents and firearms and accounts for around 295 deaths every day.
중요한 질문은 사법체계가 존재하는 국가에서 어째서 언젠가부터 통제할 수 없는 펜타닐이 미국 전역에 전례 없는 위협이 되도록 방치했을까? 그 해답 중 하나는 바로 미국 민주당의 형평성 정책 때문입니다.
In year one of his presidency, Joe Biden submitted to Congress his drug policy priorities. Number 2 on that list was, quote, advancing racial equity in our approach to drug policy. When it comes to drug arrests, drug traffickers are disproportionately ethnic minorities. Because the Biden administration is heavily focused on equity, this means the Biden administration has decided to go soft on drug offending. In October 2022, Joe Biden announced a pardon of all federal marijuana possession charges, calling criminalization of pot a, quote, failed approach. He then called on all state governors to do the same. But, as scholar Heather McDonald has pointed out, drug possession charges are typically plea bargain deals. Most people who end up in prison for possession were originally charged with trafficking, and then they pled out for a lower charge. In December 2023, Joe Biden commuted the sentences of and pardoned thousands of non-violent drug offenders. This list of crimes for which Biden commuted sentencing included charges of conspiracy to distribute meth, conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute more than 5 kilograms of a mixture and substance containing cocaine, and more than 50 grams of a mixture and substance containing cocaine base. Drug dealers convicted of intent to distribute are now back on the street. How could Joe Biden stop the fentanyl crisis at its source? Well, he could provide more serious sentences for drug offending, but he'd also have to figure out a way to crack down on trafficking from China and Mexico, and that hasn't happened. Congressman Mike Gallagher is a distinguished member of the United States House of Representatives. He serves as chairman of the House Select Committee on the strategic competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. Congressman Gallagher brings a wealth of knowledge and a strong stance on holding China accountable for its role in the global fentanyl trade.
For years, China has been the fentanyl factory of the world, and for years, Xi Jinping has pledged to do something about it, but that hasn't happened. The Biden administration wants us to believe that another verbal commitment from Xi and more so-called task forces will finally stem the deadly tide of precursor production from China. But are we really to believe that the most powerful techno-totalitarian state in human history couldn't stop this plague in a heartbeat if it wanted to?
So what are the steps that the Biden administration should be taking that they're not taking right now?
A few obvious things. We can crack down on the money laundering practices which fuel the industry and the payment methods, including WeChat Pay, which enables illegal profits from this toxic trade to make their way back to China. We could also impose sanctions on the port operators, the shipping companies that handle and ship improperly labeled fentanyl precursors, and eliminate the de minimis loophole that has allowed countless fentanyl shipments to evade customs inspections. But even that, I think, will not be effective unless we secure our southern border. If we are not strong at the southern border, districts like mine are going to continue to be effectively border districts, and sons, daughters, parents are going to suffer as a result of this ongoing fentanyl crisis we face in America.
Meanwhile, Mexico continues to pass the buck. Until recently, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador didn't even acknowledge that fentanyl was manufactured in Mexico, dismissing responsibility while using a network that he established in the United States to convince voters of Mexican descent to refrain from voting for candidates who use strong rhetoric against Mexico in light of the crisis.
마약 중독과 같이 시민의 삶을 심각하게 위협하는 펜타닐 중독 문제는 필연적으로 정치적 이슈가 되고, 소수 인종에게 관대한 미국 민주당의 사법 집행, 중국과의 유착 의혹은 비난이 끊이지 않는 지점입니다. 마약 중독이라는 사회 현상의 이면으로부터 교훈을 얻어야 할 시점입니다.